Hello and welcome to another Syntakt video. Today we are going to take a look at the Euclidean sequencer. I've sort of been ignoring it a bit since it got added in I think it was 1.40. No, 1.30, the update before that. But recently I did a bit of a deep dive to get a bit more familiar with it. And actually, it's pretty cool. And it has some sort of nice tricks up its sleeve. It can be a bit confusing when you first look at what it does. So I'm just making this video a bit as sort of like how to Euclidean sequencer on the Syntakt. So yeah, let's do that. I have a sound here. So very simply said, what a Euclidean sequencer does, it takes an X amount of steps or hits and tries to spread them as evenly as possible on a X amount of steps. So let's turn on our sequencer and our step record, because then you can actually see what's going on. So if I do 1, you get 1. And if you do 2, it spreads it evenly among the 16 steps. And with, if you go to 4, same. And 8, there's 8, there's 8. Etc. Obviously, the more interesting stuff starts to happen when you get uneven steps, because then it tries to spread them on the 16 steps as evenly as possible, because you're limited to those 16 steps. Sometimes a note gets pushed forward, and sometimes it gets pushed backwards. So that's why you get these sort of like interesting rhythms. That's all fine and dandy, of course. So when you go to 5, you get these sort of like nice groovy rhythms. But the Syntakt and also other Elektron boxes, because they all have the same Euclidean sequencer, have actually 2 of these pulse generators. Let's go back to 3, actually. It's a bit easier to see. So when I turn on the second pulse generator, you can see nothing happens because they're both on the same step. That's where these rotators come into place. So if they take the second pulse and rotate it 1 step, 1, yes. See, now you can see it appear. So they're both there, the steps are both there, but because the Syntakt is monophonic, you obviously won't hear the other step when they are on top of each other. Now you can also rotate the first pulses, of course. So you can put them basically wherever you want, which is really nice. And the third rotator is actually for the whole sequence. So in this case, it only rotates those 3 steps because those are the only ones you can see. But if I just rotate this one and offset it with 1 step, you can see it rotates the whole thing. So you can get these more sort of like syncopated rhythms if you would like to, which is really nice. Now, let's set this all back to 0, so we can only see 3 steps. Now, the Euclidean sequencer on the Syntakt has another nice trick up its sleeve, which is these Boolean operators here on the right, which basically are 4 settings which define how those 2 pulse generators interact with each other. So the first setting is the standard setting, which is OR, which basically means all steps play all the time, wherever they are and whatever they're doing. Then we have the XOR, which also means we're playing all the time except when we are on top of each other, which can be a bit confusing if you haven't rotated any of the steps, because now all your steps disappear. So I have 3 steps on pulse 1, 3 steps on pulse 2, but they're on top of each other and they all disappear because that's how this second setting works. So keep that in mind, because the moment I offset the second pulse generator with 1 step, all the steps reappear. So yeah, it's can be a bit confusing, but just keep that in mind. It's just when they're on top of each other, they cancel each other out. Now, the second setting is AND, which means they will, both pulse generators will only play when they are on top of each other. So that's sort of the inverse of XOR. So if I do like, I don't know, 8 steps or whatever, and then offset the other one, offset the second one, no steps are on top of each other, which means no sound, no steps will be heard. This third one works best, in my opinion, when your first pulse generator has like, an even amount of steps, and then your second pulse generator an uneven amount of steps, and then you can just have them overlap or not overlap. And now in this case, we only hear 3 steps because there are only 3 steps where they actually, where both sequences are on the same step. So keep that in mind as well, and don't get confused when you change to this operator and you see no steps suddenly. It's because steps are not on top of each other in this case. All right, let's go back to 3 and 3 to keep it a bit more simple. Now, the fourth one is also interesting because it's sort of similar to the XOR operator in the sense that when the steps are on top of each other, they cancel each other out. But it works a bit different because, as you can see, the second pulse generator gets subtracted from the first one, and you only hear the first pulse generator at any time. So if I rotate the second one, only the steps from the first pulse generator actually appear. So when they are on top of each other, they not necessarily cancel each other out, but they just get subtracted from each other. But if you offset them, only the steps from pulse generator 1 appear, which is also nice because, for instance, if I have like, I don't know, 7 steps, and I have like 5 on pulse generator 2. You can have these sort of like, also, well, actually all the settings are able to generate interesting rhythms. But for instance, with this one, you can very deliberately, if I just, have all, the set this one to 0. If I have all steps, if I have a pulse on all steps, like 16, and then I use the second pulse generator to, I don't know, do 5 or whatever, I can just choose where to cut holes in my sequence because it works as a subtractor. Which is really nice. In this case, it does work pretty much the same as the XOR. Because I'm using all steps, but the moment I start subtracting steps here, you notice that only the steps from pulse 1 stay on the grid, while here all non-overlapping steps appear. So there's a subtle difference there. So that's basically how the Elektron Euclidean sequencer works. Now, it wouldn't be an Elektron sequencer, of course, if you couldn't do other things, which is, of course, you can p-log things, which is pretty amazing. So So I can, I don't know, p-lock some pitches. And maybe, I don't know, some volume. And these things persist on the steps where you put them. So if I now rotate the whole sequence, they're still there. And even when I rotate the second pulse and subtract some steps, you will still keep your p-locks, which is super cool. It's basically the best of both worlds. You have this very interesting rhythm generator, but you can still add very deliberate p-locks to your sound. You know, add like maybe a reverb splash here or a bit of delay. Which is really cool. Now, what we've done up till now is just use 16 steps and then use those 2 pulse generators to make some interesting rhythms. But the real fun, of course, begins when you go to another track where we're also going to enable the Euclidean generator. But we are going to make the sequence a bit shorter, because then you can get these really sort of polymetric things going on. To be able to do this, you actually have to set your scale, your sequence to scale to be per track. Otherwise, the length option will be disabled. But now with scale per track enabled, you can just do whatever you want, which is really cool. So if, for instance, now I add like, I don't know, 5 steps here. Oh, I have to, obviously, I have to enable the Euclidean sequence as well. So now we have 5 pulses every 14 steps. And you don't really need to get too tricky now. I mean, I can do, I don't know, let's do, let's see what we're doing. Let's do 7 and set this one to 2 or 3. And then when these overlap, they cancel each other out. And maybe offset the whole thing. All right, and then maybe have another track, which is just 16, and just, I don't know, do 7. Maybe p-lock some pitch. So, I mean, pretty cool, right? And then when you have these sort of like weird interlocking rhythms going, you just add like a 4 for a kick drum and maybe like a 4 for a hi-hat. This sounds a bit stupid, actually. I don't want this on the first step, so let's make this a bit more syncopated. make the sequence a bit shorter as well. 12 or something. Anyway, you can get this sort of very nice polymetric percussion rhythms on top of each other. This is also my main usage of the Euclidean sequencer. I really like using it for percussion and then just playing it against this straight beat. You can get these really nice grooves going on. Now, I have one more thing, one more sort of trick, I guess, which is when you want to use the Euclidean sequencer for melodies. What you can either do is just, dial in some rhythms and then just p-lock pitches, which is nice. But what you can also do is record a pitch sequence. I'm going to just use the step sequencer for this. Probably the best sequence you ever heard. Amazing, right? Now, let's turn off the rest. Now, when you turn the Euclidean sequencer on, you will hear nothing. But if you start adding pulses, it will start populating those pulses with the previous pitch information that you entered. Which is really cool if you just want to have a melody sort of appear over time. I mean, it sounds a bit goofy, this, but you get the idea. It's nice that it works this way. The only thing that I don't like about this is that it will always keep the notes in the same sequence or in the same order. So if I start rotating the sequence, it will obviously change where the steps are, but it will still use all the same pitches in the same order. So it's nice if you have sort of like a predetermined melody that you want to sort of like slowly have appear. But if you want to go a bit more generative, then I don't think it's as nice of a method. But still, it's a nice little trick, that if you have so I have this melodic idea, put in some notes, and then use the Euclidean sequencer to test out some different rhythms for it. In that way, it's a really amazing feature. So yeah, amazing musical performance. I hope this was a bit helpful to explain how the Elektron Euclidean sequencer actually works. Just experiment with it because it can be a lot of fun. As always, thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I will be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.